These drivers saw something on the road they can't explain. What they captured will haunt you. You're driving alone at night. Your headlights are the only thing cutting through the darkness. Then, you see it. These are the most terrifying road encounters ever caught on camera. What would you do if you saw something on a dark road that the police said didn't exist? Driving down the Hume Highway in Bardia, Australia, was an Australian man named Mitch Kuhn on the night of April 18, 2021. It was about 7:40 p.m. He was returning from a racing event, heading home to Gold Coast City, when a childlike figure appeared completely out of nowhere, standing in the middle of the road. Wearing a blue parka, it looked from the few seconds he was in view like he was trying to cross the highway. Now, Mitch was driving at nearly 60 miles per hour, or around 96 kilometers per hour, and he was also towing a large toy hauler. In these conditions, trying to brake or suddenly move would have certainly caused a devastating accident. So, Mitch had no choice but to keep driving, managing to avoid the mysterious figure by mere inches. Fearing for the safety of a potential child, his mother, who was with him, contacted the Australian police almost seconds later. The officers online assured them they were dispatching patrols immediately. But Mitch couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. Trying to do everything he could, he called the police again at 8:29 p.m. and offered the dashcam footage he had captured. To Mitch's surprise, the officers told him they had swept the area and actually found a young child matching his description, and that he was being returned home as they spoke. What a child was doing in the middle of a highway at night, miles from civilization, was still a mystery, but at least he was safe. As Mitch put it on Facebook later, "I felt absolutely sick when all this happened. I instantly felt so much better when I was told the kid had been collected." However, just when Mitch thought everything was okay, things took a wild turn. After confirming the kid was safe, Mitch uploaded the dashcam video to the internet. But as the video gained traction, the New South Wales Police Department came forward and announced they hadn't found any child on the highway that night, completely contradicting their earlier statement. According to the official report, they scoured the area for nearly 8 hours, searching until 3:45 a.m., and found no trace of a child. The department stated that multiple cars attended and commenced a search, but no child was located. There's no reason to believe the NSW police would lie on an official report. What's more likely is that the person talking to Mitch didn't know the full details, or it was a terrible case of miscommunication. But if the child was never found, what happened to him? The answer could be anything. Maybe his parents found him, or he was potentially kidnapped by someone who saw him alone. Though, none of those theories explain how he got there in the first place. Unfortunately, the case remains an unsolved mystery to this day. On May 8, 2021, TikTok-apist pastor, real name Marley Piles, was returning from a night out with friends around 2:30 a.m. in Belmont, Michigan. What was supposed to be a fun hangout took a disturbing turn when, while driving next to the Rogue River, one of them spotted a shadowy figure crawling onto the road. After a brief discussion, the group decided to circle back. And this is what they came across. It looked like a young woman, possibly in her 20s or 30s, sitting on the road, either waving or banging her own head. She was also drenched from head to toe in 48 degrees Fahrenheit weather. Mal's group circled back one more time, and this time, the woman had completely collapsed onto the road. Realizing she was likely in dire need of medical assistance, but fearing a potential robbery setup, they made the smart choice and called 911 without getting out. The first responders arrived shortly after and took her to a hospital. Mal returned hours later and found the spot was still wet. More importantly, she found dig marks on the roadside near the river, suggesting the woman had fallen in and swam out just minutes before. The police also found her car parked behind a house near the river. Inquiring in a local Facebook group revealed she had unnerved residents earlier, with one person reporting she had walked right into someone's house yelling hello. Over the next few days, she recovered enough to tell investigators she was from Kalamazoo, a town over 60 miles away. But she had no memory of ever driving to Belmont. This woman was a 28-year-old Chinese student named Mei who had gone missing on May 6. Before disappearing, she had told friends she felt like she had a stalker. While one theory is kidnapping, witnesses and police believe she drove to Belmont on her own. The stress likely triggered a dissociative fugue state, a condition where a person forgets who they are and may travel far from home, with no memory of the event afterward. This is likely what happened to Mei. She entered a fugue state, wandered for days, and ended up in the river, fortunately swimming to shore before losing her life. On October 12, 2016, a family in Sheffield, England, went to the drawbridge public. After an evening of fun, they headed back home around midnight. The roads were usually deserted at that hour, so they were already on guard. But nothing could have prepared them for what they saw just 5 minutes later. Rounding the corner onto Grange Mill Lane Road, a man dressed in a clown costume jumped from the shadows and blocked the road. He started waving at the car, and as it stopped, he began running towards it. When the driver tried to reverse, the clown started sprinting at full speed. Typically, this could be dismissed as a prank, but due to an incident just 3 days earlier, the driver had to assume the worst. On October 9, a man named Simon Chiney was attacked by a knife-wielding clown, an event that went viral and started a craze of imitators. While many were trolls, some chased people with knives. So, for this driver, seeing a clown block his car was deeply unnerving. With the clown chasing them like a madman, the driver was forced to press the pedal to the metal, with the clown jumping away at the last second. This entire situation could have easily ended with the clown losing his life, or worse, had the driver not sped off. On June 2, 2018, an officer for the Fowler Police Department in Texas was driving back to the station when he saw the car in front of him swerve to avoid something. But this wasn't a tree branch or an animal. Instead, it was the aftermath of what looked like a horrific crime or accident. A young woman in a blue shirt was lying horizontally across the road, completely still. Fortunately, when the officer approached, she responded and even stood up. As it turned out, she had driven her car into the ditch just minutes earlier. Later tests discovered an extremely high blood alcohol concentration. The concussion from the accident, combined with her intoxication, made her behave irrationally, which is why she walked onto the road and lay down. It's a miracle the car in front of the officer spotted her in time. On the night of February 26, 1946, 25-year-old Jimmy Hollis and his girlfriend Mary Jean were returning to Texarkana after watching a movie. Before reaching the city, Jimmy stopped the car on the side of the road to extend their date. What neither knew was that this detour would nearly cost them their lives. About 10 minutes after they had stopped, a man emerged from the nearby woods. He was wearing a white pillowcase over his head with 2 small holes for eyes. He told Jimmy to get out of the car, but Jimmy initially believed it was a prank. The masked man then pulled out a firearm and stated, "I don't want to kill you, fella. Just do what I say." Understanding the gravity, Jimmy got out, and the man immediately swung his weapon, knocking him unconscious. Mary tried to run, but the man caught her and did the same. Thankfully, spooked by approaching headlights, he fled. Both victims managed to get help, and Jimmy was hospitalized with a fractured skull. For some reason, the two couldn't agree on the man's ethnicity. Jimmy insisted he was Caucasian, while Mary stayed adamant he was of African origin. This contradiction led investigators to incorrectly believe the couple knew the man. What they didn't realize was that the next couple wouldn't be as fortunate. About a month later, on March 24, a driver found a car parked on a secluded road with a young man, Richard Griffin, slumped over the wheel, and his girlfriend, Polly Ann Moore, in the back seat, both dead from gunshots to the head. The only evidence was a single .32 caliber cartridge. The police made the connection to the first attack on April 14 when another couple was killed with the same caliber firearm. News spread, putting residents on high alert. The masked man was dubbed the Texarkana Phantom. After months of searching, an investigator noticed vehicles were stolen before each incident. This led to a man named Jules Swinney, a car thief whose height and build matched the descriptions. When arrested for another theft, he claimed he knew the officer wanted him for more than stealing cars. However, with no direct evidence, he was only sentenced to life for his theft offenses. Jules denied involvement until his death in 1994, leaving the Phantom encounters an unresolved mystery. On January 8, 2024, a truck driver was on a remote stretch of highway in Western Australia when, at around 11 p.m., he had the most unnerving encounter of his life. Nearly 62 miles south of Perth, he saw what looked like two people dragging something across the highway. They showed up almost out of nowhere, forcing him to swerve dangerously. But by the time he stopped and looked back, they had vanished into the darkness. What were they dragging, and why? It's extremely difficult to identify the object. Frame by frame, it looks like the legs of a person wearing shorts and black shoes. But in motion, it could be an animal or something in between. Regardless, an equally important question is why two people would drag something across a highway in such a remote location. On September 16, 2018, a New York Uber driver shared a terrifying encounter from Long Island. He was about to complete a ride when another car drove past him at high speed, barely avoiding a collision. But before he could process it, the other driver slammed on his brakes, parked in the middle of the road, and got out, bashing on the windows and demanding the Uber driver get out. Not wanting to find out if this was road rage or an attempted robbery, the Uber driver correctly decided to back up and find a different route. However, the other driver was relentless, chasing him no matter where he went. Things worsened as they approached a red light, but in a remarkable stroke of luck, the Uber driver found a cop already waiting on the other side. They explained the situation, and the other driver was arrested for driving while intoxicated. The other driver wasn't thinking clearly and could have been armed. If the Uber driver had panicked, all three of them might have lost their lives.